Oh, come on, that was rubbish. Good morning. There we go, that's better. Welcome everybody to Birdworld this morning. It's our very first event of the day. This is our penguin feeding that we're going to be doing here with our group of Humboldt penguins. Now, I just want to say a very big thank you for joining us today on what is actually a very, very special day for us here at Birdworld. And in particular for these little guys as well. Because today is actually World Penguin Day today. So we're going to be we're really fanatical about the penguins we've got here at Birdworld. We've got these guys here, which are Humboldt penguins. We also have another colony of penguins further up the ground, which are a group of African penguins. So we've got 43 of those, and we've got 22 guys here in this pool. We're going to be telling you all about the different penguins today. We've got to talk at 3:30 with our African penguins. But because it is World Penguin Day, we've got to try and make it extra special. So we've actually going to be, we are filming this penguin feed today. We're streaming it live on Facebook, so it's going out to everyone watching us. So big thank you to everyone who's watching us on Facebook as well. Because like I say, we are fanatical about all the birds here, and in particular the penguins. So we do want to try to tell you about them. And these guys have got loads and loads to them. Now Humboldt penguins themselves, the thing that I think is really quite cool and unique about them is that they dispel a huge myth about penguins. Now maybe as well the kids can help me out with this one, okay? So kids, by show of hands, who thinks that you get penguins living in the really snowy, cold parts of the world? Okay, and who thinks you get penguins in really hot parts of the world? One, okay. Now these guys here, the Humboldt penguins, they actually live on the edge of one of the driest deserts in the world, so they actually live in a really hot part of the world. Not all penguins do. Some penguins come from what we call Antarctica, which is the South Pole. You get no penguins in the Arctic, in the northern part of the world, but you do in the South Pole. And then you get penguins in all sorts of different hot areas. So these birds come from Chile and Peru. But you do get penguins come from the Galapagos Islands, you get them into Australia, New Zealand, you get them in South Africa as well, so you do get them all the way across the world. And they are very similar in the way that they hunt and live. And these birds have really evolved in an amazing way in order to find food efficiently. Now what they do is they do what these guys are doing in the water at the minute. So if you watch all these penguins in the water, they're doing something known as surface swimming. And penguins have 3 styles in which they swim. Now, this surface swimming here is when they're basically popping their heads on the surface of the water, having a little look around, checking what's going on. And they'd be doing this in the wild to see where seabirds are. Things like gulls and petrels, seeing where they could come down and where they're scooping fish. And that's where food could be available. Now, watch all the penguins, because as soon as they find the fish, they're going to do something known as underwater flying. So as soon as I put this fish in, watch what happens. So you see, straight away, they dive down into the water. And they do a lot quicker flying, they're a lot faster. And this is known as underwater flying. I call it flying. It's not flying like we think, they're up in the air, but it is just like that. It is, like I say, called underwater flying. Some of them prefer to just sit here and let me hand feed them instead. They're being a bit lazy today. They know that if they just sit here for long enough, I'll feed them. But if you watch closely as well with these guys, so it's quite unique with our penguins, is that they'll always eat their fish head first. And that's just because of the way the scales run on the fish. It's much easier for them to eat it head first rather than tail first. So you'll see our penguins, no matter where, like these guys, being very acrobatic, catching their fish in the air, they will always twizzle it round so that it's going down head first. So that's the easiest way for them to feed. Like I said, it's underwater flying. That's just a much faster form of swimming in order to propel themselves to catch those fish and crustaceans and things like squid as well that they'll be eating out there in the wild. But these birds also have a third style of swimming as well. And that third style is actually known as porpoising. And porpoising is kind of what you see dolphins doing, so where they jump in and out of the water like that. And that's what they do on long fishing trips, because there's less resistance on the surface of the water, so they can travel further, quicker. And also if they're under attack from any potential predators as well, then these birds can use that porpoising as a style to try and evade capture from the predators. Because it's a very sort of erratic style of swimming, the predator gets disorientated and could not be able to catch up with them. And also, like I say, they just go a lot quicker as well in that form of swimming. Now, the sort of predators I talk about that these penguins are going to be suffering from out there in the wild are mainly things like killer whales, fur seals, tiger sharks as well, are the sort of things that are going to be predating on a penguin in the wild. And to cope with that, they don't just have this very quick style of swimming like they're showing off for you again in the water. But they also have amazing camouflage penguins. Now, I know what you're thinking. Okay, you've just told me that they live on the edge of a desert and they're black and white. Surely that's not very good camouflage, but it is once they're in the water. Now you imagine if you're a predator swimming above the penguin, you're going to look into the dark black depths of the ocean, and so the black back of our penguins is perfect camouflage. However, if you're, say, that tiger shark and you're swimming underneath the penguin, you're looking up onto the surface of the water, then what you're going to be looking at is the dappled white light of the sunlight shimmering on the surface of the water. And so the white belly of the penguin is perfect camouflage. So they're actually really well adapted penguins, depending on actually, it's what's called two-tone camouflage. So depending on where that predator is, they have perfect camouflage to cope with it. So although they don't look like they have amazing camouflage, in my opinion, in the bird world, they have one of the best camouflages of any of our birds. You see one of them swimming really fast over there, really showing off that really quick swimming that they can do. Now, the penguins here as well, they kind of have to cope with some real extremes out there in the wild. Now, so they live on the edge of a desert, so it's going to be very, very hot for them in Chile and Peru, where these Humboldt penguins come from. And there are actually 18 different species of penguin across the world, but the Humboldts, they really have to cope with that really extreme in temperatures. On the land, it can be really blistering heat, you know, like, well, we had rain a minute ago, but now it's really nice sunshine. And, you know, it's not really that warm for us, but these guys can cope with even warmer temperatures. So you look closely on their faces, they've got these little pink patches on their face, so just behind their beak and to the sides of their eyes. Now, they're actually patches of bare skin. And our penguins, what they'll do is when they get hot, it's just like you and me do when we're embarrassed or excited, we blush. The penguins blush as well. So they do just like us. And by blushing, they lose loads of body heat. And that makes them to cool themselves down, which means they don't get too hot when they're out there in the wild. The difference is, though, once they get into the water, our penguins, they get really, really cold. The reason they get really cold is because of something known as the Humboldt current. And the Humboldt current is a current of cold air and water, which is brought up from Antarctica, so a really cold part of the world, is brought up onto South America. So it means that when they go into the water, there can actually be up to 20 degrees difference between them being on the land and being in the water. So what these birds have is they're actually one of the heaviest of birds for their size, penguins, because they have a really thick layer of blubber. So they have their feathers, which work like a wetsuit to keep themselves nice and dry. They have a layer of downy sort of feather underneath that, which will help keep them warm, along with that thick layer of blubber they have, just like a seal would have. And then that allows them to keep themselves nice and toasty warm, and they're not going to get too cold at all. And if they get too hot, as I say, they can blush. So these two different techniques they have in order to enable them to cope as efficiently and best they possibly can with the extremes in temperature and terrain that these penguins have to endure out there in the wild. Now it's really cool, you see this little guy here at the minute, so you see how he's shaking his flippers? Now it's not because he's cold. What the penguin actually does is when you see them shaking like that, they're actually working all the fish down into their stomach. So when you see them do that, you see some of them are starting to do it now, they're kind of filling up a little bit. They're not too keen on the fish anymore. They're kind of, like I say, coming towards the end of their feed now, and they're kind of really filling up. Now, the thing that makes it really important about penguins, and particularly even more so being, you know, a real day to focus on penguins in particular, is that these birds are actually classified as a vulnerable species, which means they're not actually doing very well for themselves out there in the wild. Thankfully, times are changing, they're not as bad as it used to be. They've mainly been affected through things like overfishing areas they come from. They're trapped in traditional use fishing nets as well. But the thing which has really affected these birds is something known as guano mining. Now, you may have heard of guano mining, you may not have. I'll be surprised if many people have. But guano mining is basically, well, guano is a posh way of saying penguin poo, okay, that's all it is. And what it is penguin poo is a fantastic fertiliser. So as humans, we harvested it for ourselves so that we could then sell it to use to grow crops and such like. Now, the problem with that is, the guano, it sets like rock, okay? You can ask any of the keepers here at Birdworld, it's the hardest thing to clean, it's like a material. Now, the penguins, because of that, will use it as a tool to make their nests out of, and lay their eggs in there. Now, due to the guano, well, at one stage being almost completely gone, it meant that we had very poor breeding success with Humboldt penguins in the wild, and their numbers diminished massively. Now, because of their diminished numbers in the wild, it meant that, thankfully, conservationists took over, and now guano mining is actually illegal in South America. You're not allowed to do it anymore, and that means that then that will help protect the nest sites of these birds. And what we try to do here at Birdworld is we support many different charities here in the UK with bird projects, but also overseas as well with different birds. And for example, we work with our African penguins at the minute up at the top of the park, which is actually predicted that within 15 years they could go extinct in the wild. So it's really, really important that we try and work with those birds. But the Humboldt penguins as well we try to work with. And what we do here at Birdworld is we actually are captive breeding these birds. So if ever the worst was to happen and they were to decline massively in the wild, we could actually re-release these birds back to the wild, which is a possibility. Now, we're really excited as well because this year is actually our 50th year here at Birdworld of being open, so it's a really major, important year for us this year. And over the 50 years we've actually been here, we have successfully raised over 300 Humboldt penguins here at Birdworld, which is a massive, massive success for these birds. Obviously, they're not all still here, as you can see, but they've all gone to other zoos in the UK and overseas into Europe as well to make other colonies and set up more pairs so that then we can try and help these birds even more out there in the wild. Now, all that's left for me to say is, because they are sort of finishing off on their last little bit of fish, so I'll just tell you about a few extra events that we've got going on throughout the day today. So the next thing we have is our pelican feed, which will be at 11:45. So head up the path further up and you head to our pelican enclosure, and I'll be there feeding our pelicans and telling you all about them. So that's 11:45. Then at 12:30, if you head up to the Jenny Wren farm up at the top of the park, then we are actually going to be doing an animal encounter up there, where you can meet some of the more furry residents of Birdworld. And then at 2:30 we have our free flight demonstration in our flying arena, where we'll be flying some birds loose in the arena for you. So plenty of stuff to keep you occupied, and as I say, please don't forget African penguins at 3:30 up at Penguin Beach as well. So what I'd definitely say is thank you very, very much to everyone for listening, and everyone on Facebook as well. Thank you very, very much for joining us today, and I hope you do have a very good rest of your day here at Birdworld. Thank you.